What's up troops, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and today we're going to be discussing the new Spectator Mode which has launched on Battlefield 1 as part of the Giant Shadow update. Now Spectator Mode gives you lots of possibilities, including casting competitive matches and even doing cool stuff like taking good screenshots and potentially cinematics. And today I wanted to go over exactly all of the options you have within this mode and what you can do with it. So to start off with, well and truly, you have three different modes of using a camera in Spectator Mode. You have Tabletop Mode, you also have the Player View Mode, and you also have the Free Cam. These different cameras will allow different views and different things to do. The Tabletop Cam will allow a top-down perspective, which will let you bounce in between players and objectives quite seamlessly. The Player Cam will allow you to spectate players individually at a third-person, first-person, or even director mode, which I'll discuss a little bit more later. And the Free Cam, well and truly, is the Free Cam. You can bounce around doing whatever the hell you want with this thing, ducking and diving in between the battlefield and taking some cool shots that perhaps previously with the other cameras you couldn't get before, such as the top of this spire here at the end of this fallen behemoth. So lots of real options here on the camera mode, and really something that all manners of players will benefit from. Those here who are trying to do sort of competitive gameplay will be able to bounce in between players quite seamlessly using the tabletop camera and objectives. Those here trying to do competitive matches as well can also check different individual players. And those looking for screenshots and getting cool pictures here and there, well, they will have the ability to use the Free Cam and do pretty much whatever they want with it all around the map, even perhaps bouncing outside some of the limitations on the actual map itself and moving into areas that aren't actually accessible within the game itself if you're on the ground. So really a lot of options here. Now we also have this squad selection option available here. Down here we can literally go in between squad to squad, in between player and player, and select their point of view. It's a pretty cool feature to have, and it allows you to select individual players. So if I was a competitive caster and I knew that there was one certain player who I was really interested in watching because maybe they're a quirky guy or they're doing really well in points or KD ratio, I can switch to them, and hey ho, lo and behold, I can watch their point of view. I can also switch between a third-person camera, which will give me their statistics alongside the weapons that they are using, and I can also switch between a director camera, which is part of a more cinematic feel, but also will allow an over-the-shoulder view if I'm a competitive caster. So lots of real options here again. Now, within these, we also have other options with the cameras themselves. Now, a lot of you are here thinking, well, I don't really want all this stuff on my screen. I don't really want to see the players' names from here. Maybe I don't want the outlines, or I don't want to see the objectives, and all of that is available to you. So first and foremost, we can mess around entirely with camera speed and sensitivity. My camera was darting around quite quickly in free roam there, but if I turn this down, all of a sudden I'm moving a lot slower, and this is with the analog tilted all the way forward. So lots of things to mess about with in that respect. The sensitivity of the camera can also be changed as well in terms of looking speed, so how much it rotates. Then within that as well, we also have some more options, and this is with the Free Cam specifically. Now, I am allowed to mess around with camera sensitivity and speed, and field of view as well. I can also increase that and decrease that as I please, but I can also add filters such as Sepia, Noir, Tilt Shift, and my favourite, the Battlefield 3 filter, and also how much those filters are perhaps visible by. So if I only want a slight blue filter, I can turn that down. I can also mess around with depth of field settings, which I will discuss a little bit more for those of you out there looking to do some kind of cinematic work. And also, inside the display tab, I can turn off and on whatever I want. The border bar here, which features the spectator and cameras, I can turn off. I can turn off player outlines, turn off world icons, including objectives, turn off game info, I can turn off the squad selector, and I can turn off pretty much everything I could possibly want to. I can also choose which player death transition I want as well. So if the player that I'm watching dies, I can choose the closest squad mate, the tabletop view, or the closest player to create a seamless transition, which will be especially helpful for those of you out here looking to competitively cast. So a real plethora of options here available for anybody and any need really that you'd want with this mode. I feel as though, like I say, it's going to benefit those out there trying to do some kind of competitive work and those trying to do some kind of cinematic work. So I'm going to discuss briefly the cinematic mode, because I feel as though a lot of people out here, specifically on consoles, have not been able to do this kind of stuff before. And a quick mention as well is that if you literally want to turn everything off, just hold down the square button or the PC Xbox equivalent, and you'll be able to turn off the entire HUD as a whole. So What I'm going to do here, guys, is give you a rough idea of what you can do with a cinematic mode and roughly create some kind of screenshot that would be pretty cool. Now, for those of you looking to do cinematics, using the free cam is probably your best bet in terms of capturing gameplay, and using the director cam as well. The director cam, like I mentioned before, is a camera which will allow a player to bounce into their perspective, but also go into perhaps a over-the-shoulder perspective, or even something maybe a little bit more adverse, like behind their backs or just under them. So as you can see here, I'm messing around with this one here. If I hold square and turn off the HUD, we've got a nice looking little camera shot here of him from the top down firing his weapon. And I can do all kinds of things with this director cam. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can dodge it over his shoulder. So it's really just a dolly cam and is something that is very useful. But on the grand scheme of things, a lot of people are just going to be using the free cam, and the free cam is probably the most available camera in terms of what you want to do. So in terms of screenshots and recording, if I want to get something that's really difficult to capture, I can really go anywhere with this thing. I can capture the giant shadow itself really well. And I'm just going to give you guys a cool shot idea. So if I bring up the actual options menu by holding square, I change the camera speed and sensitivity because I want to slow that down a bit, make sure I get the right shots. And then I go into display. I can turn on, let's turn off that for now. We'll do a depth of field effect. So I'm going to find something like this wall here, and I'm going to do a quick depth of field effect on this wall. So with the depth of field effect, I can actually change the focus distance, and as you can see, as I slide this closer to 0, the things directly in front of me are more visible, but as I slide it further away, the things in the distance also become more visible and less blurred. If I turn up the camera blur a lot more, let me do that now, you guys will see exactly what I'm talking about. Focus distance changes what exactly it is you want to see, and blurs out what you don't want to see. The near start as well is also something that's pretty cool. Now, I can make this back window, for example, more blurry or less blurry depending on what my near start is, but the near end is also more important too. So as you can see with the near end here, I can bring the front of this wall to be a little bit more blurred or less blurred. The far start is also the same principle. I can completely blur this building, or I can completely unblur it, quote unquote, and the start of it and the end are roughly the same thing. So if I put the start to be here and the end to be even closer, it's blurred the building or not blurred the building. Now, you're going to have to mess around with these with yourself if you want to get the perfect shot, quote unquote, that kind of thing. It's quite difficult to do, but eventually you will get around to it. So if I turn on a little camera filter now, maybe perhaps a little bit of sepia, and I turn it down a bit because I don't want it to be too overbearing on the overall screenshot. And then if I hold square, just like that, we get rid of the HUD, wait for the spinny bar in the top corner to disappear, and we can take some really cool cinematic screenshots or even record some cinematic gameplay. The same applies pretty much to any other camera that you will use, and it's just overall a really good feature. I can get some really cool shots of the interiors of buildings or the exteriors of buildings or players running around, and working with a coordinated team perhaps on a cinematic or a screenshot will create some really awesome results for you guys. So that's about it for this cinematic video. I hope you've enjoyed it as part of the DLC release for Giant Shadow. Let me know if there's any questions you have down below in the comments section. I'll be happy to answer whatever really I can, and make sure you check out the new Spectator Mode. I feel like every player could have something to gain from it, whether it's sharing screenshots on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One via an Elgato, or even the share button, which obviously we all have available to us on both Xbox and PlayStation. Or even if on PC you're just looking for something that's a bit more simplistic and doesn't require a lot of effort in jumping into the server browser, then this is something definitely up your alley. As always guys, it's been me, the Tactical Brit. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon in another video.